So today we're going to be going over the cross, the straight, the right hand, whatever you want to call it. There's a bunch of different names for the same technique in martial arts. So essentially what we're going over is the punch that's going to come from the rear. So your rear side, or what we would call your power side. In a lot of styles, when we're sparring and we're fighting, our lead, so in my case, fighting orthodox, my left, my jab, my left leg, it's more for speed and setting up strikes with the power side, the rear, in my case, is the right. So it could be a cross, it could be a knee, or it could be a kick. So as far as throwing the cross, there's a few mechanics we have to have in mind, a few mental checks we have to be aware of when we're training it. So, first of all is the stance. I have to be in a square stance to throw any strike from the rear, any strike from the right side of my body needs to be sitting in a very comfortable square stance. So if I'm facing camera here, I'm in a square stance, my hand's here. Why do I say that? Well, in a lot of martial arts, we also fight in a bladed stance too. That's good if I'm throwing strikes from the lead, but unfortunately, I can't do that if I'm doing a strike from the back because my hips are now interrupted. My left hip is blocking the line of force with my right hip going through. If I wanted to push somebody that was right here, I wouldn't push them in this stance. I would face them square on and push them so that my hip can face the target. So if I'm throwing a right hand, the front of my hip needs to face the target, which is my right hip. So I'm in my stance. I'm not bladed. I'm square. In my stance, all I'm going to do is turn my wrist over and pivot with my back foot as if I'm squishing a cigarette bud or a bug. Side view of that. Few things to keep in mind here while I have this shape is I'm actually slightly turning my thumb down. I'm not doing it all the way, but to right about 6 o'clock is where I turn my thumb down. Why do I do that? It's something that I've picked up more recently in my training. I find that with the right hand, if you add extra rotation to about 6 o'clock with the thumb down at that angle, it adds more power to the strike. So I find when I'm hitting pads, when I add that extra turn, there's more of a pop in the pads. There's more of a power. The other thing is it's good to drill if you're new because beginners do what I call T-Rex punches, where it almost looks like they're doing Wing Chun without knowing it. They're throwing these punches without rotating and really using their reach. That's like a very common thing with people that are new to martial arts is they don't know how to just rotate their back and reach. Rotate the back and reach in order to land a strike. So if we're breaking down the mechanics here of the right hand, I have that thumb turned down. I turn my wrist over. I'm protecting my face with my left hand. I'm sitting on the punch to have power. I'm not standing too tall. And I'm in a comfortable stance that I could hold. If this was a Kung Fu form, I could hold this stance. If you do this and you stop here on the punch and you find yourself falling, there's a flaw in your stance. So there is a benefit to doing an exercise of just holding the punch out. You don't want to get in the habit of just holding that punch out because when we hit pads, when we hit people, what do we want to do? We want to retract. But that's just an exercise. So I have that pivot. I turn my thumb over. I protect my face, and I'm in that squat. Okay? Square stance, number one. Number two, hands are up. Number three, thumb goes to about 6 o'clock, and at the same time, number four, my foot pivots. When I pull back my cross, I unpivot back to my stance. If I make my stance less square, but still allow for that mobility of the hip. I can throw a cross that is a little sneakier where my opponent doesn't really understand my range. And what I'm getting at is that if I'm completely square, like this square, and I throw a cross, my opponent knows how long my reach is. But if I keep the left in front, put the right in back, but don't go to a bladed stance, but just put it more back so it's less square. When I throw the cross, it's harder to know that length because my arms aren't in the same place here. This arm's in the way defending, and then this cross, when I implement turning my shoulder and my back, it has good reach. And that's another really important detail with the cross is learning to twist your back. Because often when people cross, they'll go forward with the cross or they'll go off to a side. So they'll lean forward or they'll go off to the side when they throw the cross. What you want to do is implement a twisting of your spine. At the same time, you do all those other steps that I mentioned, protecting your face, being in a square stance, pivoting the foot, and then rotating the wrist, having the thumb down. Okay? When we drill it, we retract it. So I move around, I retract it. I retract that cross. I can add a little step first, open those hips up, throw the cross. If I'm going in a line, my coach, shout out Coach Tu Win, when I was learning boxing, he just had us walk in a comfortable stance, baby steps, then we step out slightly at a 45-degree angle, we throw a perfect cross and pull it back. Walk, perfect cross, pull it back. Walk, perfect cross, pull it back. So that's a great solo exercise that you can do to improve your cross. So now let's go over to the heavy bag so I can demonstrate how to hit it on the bag. So as far as working the cross on the heavy bag, you want to get in the habit of punching with your big two knuckles, those front two knuckles. I'm not too cognizant of it when I punch, but I've been punching forever. It might be something useful for you to try. When I throw this right hand on the heavy bag, I want to have this feeling of pushing through the bag and pulling back. One of my teachers said, imagine the bag is actually a few inches deeper, and this is where the bag starts. That allows me to get much more of an extension when I punch. Because normally when I punch, what people do is they punch at the bag. A lot of people, they'll just punch right at the bag. What I want to do is punch through the bag. But we're not punching through the bag and holding the punch out like it's some kata. We're going to pull that punch back. We're going to retract it, and that adds power to it. So I'm here, and we add power. And in between shots, when I'm drilling that right hand, I'm moving. I'm alive. I'm moving. It's nice and live. I can walk around the bag without crossing my feet. Throw that right hand. Again, I could double up that right hand. This is a really important strike because this is the strike that can knock people out. This is your power. This is also a strike that you can use when you have an aggressive opponent that's chasing after you and he won't give you any of that respect of your space. You can use your right hand to stop him. Someone comes towards you, move your footwork back, you fire that right hand, and you can stop people in the tracks. So using any strikes, any attacks from that rear side, whether it's a kick or a punch, it's a really good way of demonstrating to your opponent your power and discovering your own power when you're hitting bags and working the bag. So notice when I'm here on the bag, when I punch, my hands up. Really common beginner mistake is their hands go low. If you're a beginner and you find that your hands are going low, your coach is telling you your hands are low, just touch your cheek with your glove. That will tell you, because other than that, you won't know, you can't really see this hand. You're looking straight. So if that's the case, touch the glove with that cheekbone to ensure that you're protected. Because if I spar a new person and they drop their hand down, they're going to get decked in the face. Okay? I still work my pivot. When I pull back the punch, I unpivot. Okay? So, as I always say, there's not one right way how to do a technique in martial arts, but there's a lot of wrong ways. Okay? So, for right hand, leaning over forward, that's a wrong way. Leaning to one side, that's a wrong way. Lifting the foot up when you're hitting, that's a wrong way. But there's not one true right way. There's variations all the time. I was never taught growing up to turn that thumb down slightly when I throw the right hand. So if I probably saw it years ago, I saw someone doing it, I was like, well, it's probably not the best thing to do. After experimenting with it, that's how I teach the right hand. I throw that thumb down. So what I'm trying to get at is that don't be so dogmatic about things have to be a certain way. There's variability on techniques. But also, don't get me wrong, there are wrong ways in how to do things. Anyways, that's the right hand. I'm a martial arts instructor here in Orange County, California. I also work in the film industry as a stuntman, fight choreographer. So if you're interested in learning from me, whether it be private lessons, through online work, or through learning fight choreography, hit me up. My Instagram is @GabeRuan, so it's @GABERUAN, and let me know in the comments what you want to learn next. Thank you. Os.